You, your kids and grandkids are going to be living in a global fascist dictatorship.
There are very few people control the world. Very few people. People will be staggered how few.
Why does a psychopath do what they do? Why does a serial killer do what they do? Why do psychopaths act like they do? And the answer is because they're psychopaths. So what we're dealing here with are psychopaths, in fact, super psychopaths. Super psychopaths that have, as psychopaths have, it's what it is, the top trait of a psychopath. They have no empathy. They have no ability to put themselves in the feeling and experiences of those they affect. So anyone who has empathy, it's the fail-safe mechanism of human behavior. If you can feel empathy with the effect you're having on other people, that limits what you're going to do. Because first of all, you're having an emotional consequence for what you're doing. But when you have no empathy because you're a psychopath, you don't have that emotional consequence. In fact, you get off on people suffering and you posturing your power over them. So, we're dealing with deeply insane people from a consciousness point of view, but intellectually bright enough to understand how the human psyche works and how you can manipulate it. Because when there's a few of you and you want to control billions, you have to do it by manipulating the perceptions of the billions so they act and respond in ways that suit your agenda. You can't, they want to go to this next stage through connecting the human brain to artificial intelligence, which they're openly talking about. But up to this point, they simply don't have the numbers to impose their will upon the population. There's not enough of them. Even taking into account the law enforcement and the government administration and all this stuff, there's still only a fraction of them compared with the population they want to control and dictate to.
Why do people who have more money than they could spend in 100 lifetimes, why are they up with the sun every morning, rushing around trying to earn still more? Because these people are intoxicated by a desire for power. And it's to do with their genetics, because it's not an accident that these families incessantly, obsessively interbreed. And I'm not talking about some race that we would recognize and give a name like Croatian or British. I'm talking about a bloodline that has interspersed itself within every single nation, and that they are the people who within those nations miraculously end up in the positions of power. So it's like a global tribe which infiltrates different nations, and those people are the ones that end up in government, in royalty and all the rest of it. And indeed, royalty is interesting because where did this idea come from of the divine right to rule? Which is what? It's the right to rule because of your bloodline. We have a queen in Britain who is only Queen of England, head of state, because of her bloodline.
It all comes down in the end, in terms of these society controlling institutions, to what I call the global cult, which is a global network of secret societies and semi-secret groups with ultimately, if you go deep enough in the rabbit hole, a mission control, a central organizational center. This explains why countries tend to respond to the same kind of situations in extraordinarily the same way. The thing is, if you're talking about control and the need to control, then you look at society as it's structured, and control is overwhelmingly dictated by money. Who has it and who doesn't? And if you look at a definition of freedom, Well, it's choice. The more choices you can make, the freer you are. The fewer choices you can make, the less free you are. And in the way that society is structured today, what dictates choice more than anything than money? Who has it and who doesn't? So I hear people talk about how the billionaires and the billionaire corporations, etc., are all about money. Well, yes, on one level, they have a mentality that is as an insatiable greed. But the bottom line of bottom lines is not about accumulation of money. It's accumulation of control via the weapon of money. And when you look at how this cult, in all its different expressions, brought in the money system to what it is today, it's founded on creating money out of nothing called credit.
It was interesting, about a couple of years ago, we've got this organization in Britain called the Commission for Racial Equality. In fact, it's called a more grand name now. Same thing, bigger desk, same organization really. And they asked people to write in and report acts of racism, which they then investigate. And I wrote in and I reported the British royal family and the institution of royalty, because it ticked every box. Not only do you have to be of a certain bloodline to be the monarch of England, in effect you have to be a certain colour, and you even have to be, at least officially, a believer in Protestant Christianity.
So you are looking at this constant centralization of power, and at every stage fewer people are dictating to more and more. And there's another equation in this, which is that the more you centralize power, the more power you have at the center to centralize even quicker. So it gets faster and faster and faster and faster. So the way they do it, and the COVID era is a classic example of it, is they manipulate the perceptions of the people so they act in ways that suit the agenda. So they're psychopaths, so they act like psychopaths. And in terms of who they are, well, that's a very long story. But I have taken this back to at least to ancient Babylon and Sumer, and you can go back further and into other parts of the world as well. But you can follow a network which you can follow it out of Babylon, you can follow it out of Egypt too, and into Rome, where they became the Roman Empire ultimately. Wherever this network has gone through history, an empire has followed, because that's what they are. They're acquisitive. They wanted global power, and they went in stages expanding that global power.